Hi guys, I wanted to talk a little bit about the mechanics of weaving. Some of you had questions about it, and I wanted to address it since we're getting at the end of our class, that you understand that there are certain physical attributes that your dog has that dictate how he's going to weave. There are some commonalities, however, so we're going to address those in this presentation. So the physical shape of a competent weaver is going to look similarly across all different breeds. Some of those things should be that the head is as low as physically will be allowed, that the dog's eyes are looking forward to each pole and not on the handler, and that the head is going to snake back and forth to find their way through. We also, as far as footwork, we want dogs who 2-foot very tight to the poles and not making big S's and losing ground lateral side to side. We want them efficient and low and moving forward with each drive. Single footers or dogs that swim should also be very tight to the poles. We also want to make sure that both rear legs are pushing equally, and here's where video is so important for you guys to shoot. Both head on, so you see the front of the dog and the rear feet. However, you really can't look at footwork until the dog has at least 6 poles, and better yet, when they have 12, then you can really see the dog. They decelerate slightly to hit their entry and then find their rhythm and go as fast as they can through the poles. So those of you who are on shorter sets at 4, it's really an entry and an exit, and that's it. And the dog's really not. They're starting to develop their footwork, but it's not going to be completely developed until they're beyond 6 poles, in my opinion. My humble opinion. So your dog's body type or conformation is going to dictate how they really look in the poles and if they're going to single foot or double foot. So in a nutshell, if your dog has really good shoulder layback, they're going to be able to step through and swim across. Also, the dog needs to be big enough, obviously. A very small dog like Hercules would not be able to ever, in his wildest dreams, single foot through the poles. He's going to double foot. Also, the shoulder layout helps them get their head lower, which they'll drive poles. Here is the rear angulation, and that also helps propel the dog through the poles. The engine is in the back, in other words, and they can get the rear under to support the shoulders up so that the dog can move their shoulders freely, whether they're going to double foot or single foot. Here's just another illustration of the 2 angle planes. I'm by no means an expert on conformation. However, Wendy Wallace is a great person to talk through to and then get more information on your particular dog as well. So we're going to now look at some video of how dogs weave. So these are different dogs. This is shot a while ago, so some of these dogs are no longer with us. This is a line of 12 poles, I believe. And you're going to see that the dog has to come in, decelerate, and then start to accelerate back out. So here we have a double footing. And then the dog has to prepare for exit. So each dog's going to come in fast motion and then regular motion. And just there, the dog had to make a decision about the entry and did not pick the correct one. So you're looking for, whether it's single footing or double footing, that the dog is using each side of their body equally, that there's no dragging feet through. So here's slow motion. And you can see he is swimming through, and notice how far across that was a double foot. single, 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 and then a double foot for exit. Okay, this dog looks very odd and not very rhythmic. And I want you, instead of focusing on the front, look at the rear left leg. And that the fact the dog is not using it and really trying to avoid it. You can also replay the video if you're missing it. The dog had a torn ACL or a strain, and the dog wasn't using the left hind. Okay, so that is the actual speed. And here the dog is finding the entry, and this dog's very powerful, and you can see how much his shoulders have to work, bringing the leg towards him and then pushing it across and through the poles. And then again, a double foot out. Here's another large dog, again, single footing. So again, notice how much those shoulders have to work, and that's why it's so important that you do the physical therapy work with your dog. Double foot out. Here's a little dog, so 2-footer. Very, very different weaving. Notice the head is a little bit higher. He's fairly tight to the pole, so he's fairly efficient. Okay, and here's a little Sheltie. And I want you to notice towards the end of the poles how much ground that the dog starts to lose laterally. Look at the big S shape that's happening. Big, huge S shape. So that's a loss of time and efficiency. So here we're looking at the rear. And again, both rear feet should be pushing equally, excuse me, from the hind. And that's what you're looking, that the dog is using their body equally. So those hips, they have to do a little hop with the rear. There are some dogs that will actually single foot in the rear, but that is less common than double footing in the rear. So again, you're not looking at trying to change each dog. You're looking for efficiency, and are they really pushing off their rear end? So you notice he came in, and now he's sometimes single footing in the rear and sometimes double. So double, and now you notice he switched to single footing in the rear. So only one rear foot is coming down while he swings the other one across and through the poles. Actually very rare for dogs to do that. Here's just a young BC learning to do poles. So she entered with double foot, very common to balance, decelerate, and then single footing. There is some parts of this dog that occasionally, as she's learning, she'll double foot and then single, and then occasionally dogs will get off balance. If they understand their job, they'll attempt to keep going. There's double foot out while she singled the rest. So double collection to get in, double, and then we're single footing. There was a slight double. Again, it's a young dog trying to figure their footwork out. What you're hoping for with your dogs is that physically they're strong and you're doing physical therapy work and that you're getting regular chiropractic, because weave poles are very hard on them, and then they will, attempt to offload a sore area, and we want them to use their whole body equally. Okay, and here's just some dogs at different trials, and what you're looking for again is that they get in, they start their footwork, and they maintain that footwork consistency all the way through. There was a double foot, we got a little off balance. Not a bad thing, but just something to note that the dog is inconsistent in footwork once they're in, and we would rather have it rhythmic. They could be telling you that they can't go any faster and they have to. There's a single foot when we were double. There's a double, little off balance, so the dog is still trying to work its footwork out. Much larger dog. Different shoulder layout. Little bit of a different style. Single footing in the front, and again the rear looks like it's pushing. Single footing in the rear in some of the spaces as well, so you could watch that again and you'll see some variation in footwork. Find the entry and then start your footwork. And this dog looks a little bit sticky, meaning maybe he has some flex problems in his spine, or he's still working out his footwork. All right, on to the next slide. So which dog is more efficient here? You should be saying this dog. Yep, head low, looking forward, tight to the poles. Whereas this little guy is weaving with too much energy up in the air instead of pushing himself forward. We also have other problems. If weave poles are too hard to figure out, the dog is not very well motivated and you're going to lack speed. Whereas our little cocker friend here is looking forward and down and very tight to the poles. And here's a very rare dog, able to weave while blindfolded. Wow. So I would suggest, if you have a very long coated breed, that you tie the hair up. You may even have to pin the ears back, especially while the dog is learning. What you should just take away from this presentation is that it's absolutely imperative that you not force the dog to adapt a certain style in the poles, but that they are physically fit and they're chiropractically sound and there's no ligament issues and patellas that would prevent the dog from having a good rhythm, good steady footwork in the poles. That's what you should take away from this presentation. Thanks, guys. See you soon.